Today we're going to be learning how to make latex bald caps. But at first I'd like to go over a few things with you for this week. So let's first start talking about your final project. You guys got emailed a new sheet for your final project because it's no longer a group project, and there's a little bit of adjustments that were made. If you look at the sheet, the top columns are very similar, and then if you look at the bottom of the sheet, there's a description on certain elements within each column. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. I have given you, or you've come and picked up your supplies already. Everybody's come, which is great. You do have, I'm just going to go over a couple of things right now that I gave you. So you have this bottle of latex. A thing to note about this latex is it's not latex stipple, so it's not meant to go directly onto the skin when it's wet. I'm just going to show you here. This is the FiberTech. This is the FiberTech latex that we're going to be using. So it's decanted. This is latex rubber, and if you look here, it's poisonous and corrosive and vapor harmful. So if you're not working in a well-ventilated area, please wear your respirator. We don't want to be breathing this in. We also need to be wearing gloves. So I did give you guys some gloves. Wear a pair of gloves while you're stippling. You don't want to get this on your skin when it's wet. You did get some sponges. So we'll be using these white sponges here for our stippling. They're really nice because they'll give you a fine, if you do it correctly, they're going to give you a fine, even stipple. Okay. You have a powder puff. We'll be using that after when we're removing the cap. Everybody has a red head. There's a baggie labeled baby powder, so you'll need that today as well. And you'll also need, I suggest a garbage bag, and maybe even a brush, which I'll get into later, a fluffy brush that doesn't shed. It's important that it doesn't shed, okay? I also have some baby wipes out on my station as well. So let's start, and a blow dryer. Let's talk about the redhead. So if you look at your redhead, there's going to be a seam that runs across. Now, all of your seams, and you can kind of see it probably in some areas, all of your seams have been filed down already and filled with clay all the way across. Now, some of the clay may be a little bit chunky, or pieces may have come off. So double check your clay. If it's not looking smooth, just smooth it out like you would sculpting. This is important because we'll probably be using the underside of the cap as the top surface. So we're going to flip it inside out when we apply it. If there's any imperfections that are on the redhead, you're going to see that. It's basically the negative that you're going to see on your cap. So just make sure that your redhead is looking good. Some of them may be marked. Here, let's see. There we go. Some of them may be marked with a Sharpie. Now this one has a lot of lines on it. It doesn't need that. You could just do one Sharpie line around. So first thing I want you to look at is the shape of the head itself. One side, so this side here where my Sharpie marks are, one side has a bit of a taller front here, and then it's more bulbousy right in here, so a lot curvier on this one side. If you look at the other side, it's a little bit flatter and bigger down on the bottom. So the reason why you want to note this is you want to think about what side is going to be your face for the application. If you have a model with a head that's a little bit more bulbousy back here and less flat, or you're putting a bunch of hair back here in this area, then I would use this side, so that's the curvier side, for the back of your head. If you are doing just a basic hair wrap and you don't have a lot of bulk that you're applying up top here, then you would use this side for the back. Okay, so you have to decide which side is going to be your face and which side is going to be the back of your head. For me, I'm going to use the curvier side as my face. It does taper in a little bit more. So if you have somebody with a smaller head in here or smaller head all around, it's kind of nice to have this being the face. Another thing that I want to talk about is when you're drawing, if it's not already on there or if it's not done correctly, you can draw on your Sharpie lines. So look in the center here, okay? And then maybe about 3 fingers wide, unless you have really skinny fingers, are going to be your line. So you can see here, this is my Sharpie line. So I'll draw my Sharpie lines on either side of that 3-finger space. We're going to go up to about halfway, about here. Okay, so you can see my first line curve. You only have to do that one. If you would like to do the extra rings, you can. This will just help signify layering and blending and tapering your edge. So you're welcome to do that as well. I'm going to hold it a little closer so you guys can see what I'm referring to. Okay, great. So when we do our latex stipples, we're going to be stippling to that line. We are leaving a space in between the line here with no latex. This is important for when we're removing the cap. So this is going to be my face area again. I'm going to stipple all the way down to the bottom. This is important because if you have somebody with a larger head, you need this extra space on the cap. Okay. Now you want to think about how many layers of latex you're going to stipple. I always like having a plan in mind for what I'm going to do under the cap because that will determine how many layers I'm going to stipple. If I'm doing a regular bald cap where I'm trying to hide hair texture, I will do more layers, a thicker cap so I can hide that hair texture. If I'm going to be doing braids or putting on different structures under the cap, like maybe shells or balls or cotton, to change the structure of the head, and I want to see the texture, then I will do a thinner bald cap. A thicker cap is going to be maybe 8 to 10 layers, depending on how thick you do your layers. A thinner cap will be 7, 8 layers, again, depending on how thick you apply your layers. It's better to apply the layers thinly and very even, so we get a nice cap with little imperfections. So thinner, more layers is better than thick, chunky layers. Okay, so that being said, this redhead that I have right here already has, I did 5 stipple layers on here already, just so I can get this demo going a little bit faster and you guys didn't have to watch me do all my layers. The first 3 layers that I did, I stippled to my Sharpie line. My 4th layer, I'll hold it nice and close there. There we go, to my first Sharpie line. My 4th layer, I moved back about maybe a centimeter. So my 4th layer, a centimeter, my 5th layer, and so on is going to be 1 centimeter back. So my 5th, 6th, 7th, however many layers after that is going to come up to this line here. This is going to help give us a tapered, just so you guys can see really good, this is going to help give you a really nice tapered edge. Same goes for the front. So I stippled actually down further for my 1st layer and 2nd layer, and then I started moving up, and I'll never, so I'm going to do the rest of my layers So 5, 6, 7, and 8 up to this line here. If you end up making your cap too thin, as you're removing it or stretching it and removing it, you're gonna end up seeing little holes in your cap. This is really bad when we're trying to apply a bald cap. One, it looks bad. Two, you have to pax it out, and we don't really wanna be paxing into holes on the cap and paxing your model's hair, because you can't really bondo that as well. So make sure that you're making it thick enough. If you are unsure, put another few layers on the top. It doesn't really matter unless you want a super thin cap, how many layers you have up here on the top in the crown area, and just in this general area here, you can even beef that up a little bit more, okay? Pay attention to what layer you're on. So your first cap could potentially be your practice cap. You'll be making 2, unless the first one turns out better. So let's say you do 8 layers for your first cap, you take it off, and you might realize, hey, I need it a little bit thicker or a little bit thinner. Just adjust from there. Okay, so I'm just going to get started stippling some latex. The reason we're using the white sponge today is so that we can get a nice, even texture. If you have a sponge that has a larger pore or holds more product, you can end up dispensing too much on and it will be kind of chunky, which we don't want. I don't want you guys wasting your gloves, so as your latex starts drying either on your glove or on your table, wipe the surface off with a baby wipe and dry, and just keep using the same pair so you don't have to go through a lot of gloves. Okay, so I'm just going to, here, I'll put this over here. Okay, so I'm just going to start off by putting a little blob on the table, cleaning off my gloves because we don't want to have any dried chunks on there. If you look, you want to be careful when you're touching, especially when there's latex on there, when you're touching your cap. You don't want to peel it or stick to it. So if you look at the bottom here, there's a hole. And what I like to do is I like to just stick my finger inside and hold the head like this, so I'm not worried about peeling up my edge here. It's very easy to peel. Okay, so I want you guys to start in a pattern. So for me, I'm going to start on one side and go up to right about here. So that's my very top line. Dipping in the latex, and you really want to load up your sponge with a lot of product. So I'm going to start away from my Sharpie line. I'll just do this one all the way to the front so you guys can see how to get started. So I'm going to start about this far away from my Sharpie line here, and then stippling. And then I'm going to start bringing it closer. And then, so I kind of went in and now I'm coming down, and we want to get a nice even coverage. So you can see it's a little bit white. I'm going to just rotate the head, and we always want to make sure that we're overlapping. I'm going to go all the way up here, that we're overlapping the last layer, like the last pass of latex that you just did. So just spreading it out nice and even, and then very, very gently tapping it. This is going to help to get more of an even texture. If you push too hard, you're going to end up squishing the latex out on the side of the sponge and getting these lines of like heavy latex texture. Okay, rotating again. So what you can do as well if you want to work a little bit faster is just kind of brush it on at first on the area that you're going to be applying it, like so, and then stippling to blend it out. So at first I'm applying a little bit more pressure. Making sure again that we overlap, we're going all the way down to the bottom. And then we're gonna just very softly blend out the texture. You want to make sure that you're stippling fast enough so that your latex doesn't dry on you as you're working with it. If it does end up starting to dry on you, you might start peeling up areas. You also want to watch out for little tiny pieces of the sponge. If you do see a little like white piece of the sponge, take your finger and wipe it off before the latex dries, or else it's forever going to be on the cap and you'll just end up making more of a mess trying to take it off. So I'm just rotating again here, and we're coming back up to the hairline. So I'm coming right to that first initial line. Okay, so the sides are done. I'm going to start working the top now. I like to go right down the center, flip it, and then just get the kind of crown area. Just try to get it nice and evenly spread out. Flipping it, I need a little bit more product just to finish off this layer. So this is the forehead, top of the head / forehead area. Remember, if there's any imperfections that you see as you're stippling, deal with them while the latex is wet. If you don't notice something and the latex dries, you need to leave it. Don't pick at it. You have to leave it and just work with the cap that you make. So at this point, I've done a layer on the whole cap. I'm going to dry it now. So I'm just going to take my sponge and store it and keep it on the table in the wet latex, just so that my sponge doesn't dry out. Okay, so you can see some of it's already dry on this side here. Some of it's still white, so it's wet. I'm just going to give it a quick blow dry on the cool setting. I switched over to the warm setting about halfway through, and that's fine as long as I don't make it so warm on my clay that I'm melting my clay. Okay, so that was 6 layers for me because I pre-did some layers for you guys just so you're not confused. So I'm going to do my 7th and 8th layer further back like I talked about earlier. So same exact thing, I'm just going to do it again, but moving further back this time. Again, once I get it kind of spread out, I'm going to go over it very gently just to get a nice even texture. If you are working on a more mature model or somebody with a bumpier skin texture, you can actually use this outside part of the cap as your surface, your top surface. So this is another reason why you would want to do a nice even stipple layer. And you could use technically a different sponge to get even more texture if you needed to. So when I'm done with this layer, I'll show you the sponge that I'm referring to. But more often than not, you'll want a pretty smooth cap. I'm going to do a total of 9 layers, and all of my layers that I did look like this. They were this thin, very, very thin. So my cap shouldn't be very thick at 9 layers. Okay, so let's do that again with the blow drying. So making a bald cap or using latex to make molds or to pour up pieces is quite different from doing a latex stipple. With a latex stipple, you stretch the skin and powder in between each layers. The reason you powder in between the layers is so that it doesn't stick together when you release the skin. For making bald caps or brush on molds, anything like that, you do not need to powder between layers. Just make sure that your sponge is always wet or else you're gonna end up sticking because dry latex to dry latex will stick. Okay, so I'm about to work on my 8th layer right now. By now, you would have had to change your sponge. Your sponge will start kind of falling apart. There we go, there's a chunk right there. Your sponge will start kind of potentially start falling apart on you. So if you notice that you're losing little pieces of it onto the redhead, just grab a new piece. You have that whole package to make 2 caps with. So I just grabbed another chunk that I saw off there while it was still wet and then stippled over that area. Okay, I'll check right now. I did. Okay, so let's try this layer. Okay. So my last layer for me is going to be my 9th layer. And for this one, I'm actually going to go a little bit further, maybe a couple centimeters further out than my last line. So that's a bit close. I basically just want to make sure that the sides, back and top of the head aren't going to have holes. And when we remove this cap off the red head, if it's really, really thin, you'll end up kind of stretching the cap and having these little kind of puckered areas. And you'll see, hopefully that doesn't happen to me, but if it does, then you'll see what I'm talking about. It might happen. It happens sometimes on the back of the neck. So you can see I'm just kind of rotating my wrist that's holding the cap just to continuously look at different angles. I'm just kind of flipping, just kind of twirling around here. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing, but I'm kind of just like spinning as I work. Okay, let's dry that. So when you're putting the head down, again, be careful not to peel up your edges. So I'm just gonna try to grab it and hold it where there is no latex, and you can tell because it's more matte when it's just the red head and quite shiny where there's latex on there. So I'm just gonna slide my finger out and carefully place it down on the table. Now, when you're doing many, many layers, your fingers might cramp up, or your hands from holding the head, like my fingers getting a little sore here. So I suggest you guys taking breaks every couple layers, every 2 or 3 layers. Okay, so just wiping off the table. Make sure that your surface is really clean before you start. So I cleaned and disinfected the table before my demo today. Okay, we can remove our gloves at this point. So the next step is going to be peeling off the cap. In order to do that, we're gonna need to powder first, because as we're peeling, the cap's gonna wanna stick to itself because it's latex. So we're gonna do a really, really heavy powder layer on the cap right now. So I'm just gonna apply a little baby powder out onto the table. And you can use a brush or you can use your powder puff. So I'm just going in here, and you can see it's quite loaded up. And just gently tapping on the top of the head. And then we do want a lot of powder on the cap. So now I can touch the top because it's powdered if I want to. I won't just so you guys can see, but just kind of bringing it down. Here, let's flip it. Just gonna bringing it down from the top. We don't want to be pulling this way. This will peel the cap off. We want to make sure we're going from the top of the head downwards. Okay. So at this point, we have to set up just for removing the cap off the redhead, but I'm going to answer any questions that you guys have at this point in time. So any other questions other than powdering in between, because I touched on that? Oh yeah, this was the sponge that I was originally talking about here. If you wanted a heavier texture, but be careful, again, you don't want to use too much texture, so this is just like a dish sponge. You can use that if you want to do something fast, like a faster cap that has more imperfections on it. Okay. So let's take about a 10-minute break just so we can reset for removing the cap. So come back in 10 minutes, so that's 9:50. Let's say 9:50.
Oh, that is damn good orange juice. Not too much pulp, not too little, just the right amount.
I'm so glad that you like it, dear. It's freshly squeezed.
Valencia?
No. Blood.
Fuck me sideways with a chainsaw. Are you alright?
Whatever do you mean, dear?
Her fucking eye is sticking out of your head.
No, I don't think so.
Honey, did we get a cat?
Of course not, dear. I'm allergic. You know that.
Yeah, I think we left the back door open. I'm gonna go and...
Right this way, please. Lay down here, please. Lay down, please.
Okay. We were afraid you had changed your mind. Oh! Ah! Oh! Ah! What?
We thought you changed your mind.
Okay, about what?
The procedure, silly.
Procedure? What procedure?
I think you're taking us to be a couple of suckers. Are you? Because if you are,
I've got all the proper documentation, and this is a binding legal contract that says I can do whatever the fuck I want with you.
Don't let him upset you, Ben.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Wait, what is it that you want to do with me?
This.
What are those things?
They're gills.
I don't think I want any gills. Do I?
You'll wonder how you ever got on without them.
Okay, I mean, I like them, but I don't want them on me.
Here we go. Again!
Mongo!
Mongo. Matt, yeah, he was in my kitchen. Whoa, okay, easy. No.
Well, don't just stand there. Come in. Bill, isn't it?
Depends who's asking.
Good. Let's begin.
All right.
Don't you want to know?
What?
The meaning of life.
Sure. Why not?
The meaning of life is... I'm so sorry. There's been something going around. All right. The meaning of life is... I have to take this. Hi, sweetie. I don't know. Do you see any milk in the fridge? Well, then I guess we don't have any. Okay? Okay, no. Mommy's at work. I'm sorry. What were we talking about?
The meaning of life!
Right. Yes. The meaning of life is...
Oh shit! Do you have any gills?
当たり前じゃない。みんな持ってるわよ。
I don't have any. Yet.
あなたはもう逃げられないわね。
I thought this was supposed to be peaceful.
どうしてそう思うの？
It's time for me to go now, isn't it?
仕方がないわね。
You know, I didn't know I can even speak Japanese. You know what? No. I'm not ready. I'm not ready! I'm not ready! I'm not ready! I'm not ready! Oh! 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 Do you mind?
Thank God you're okay.
Buy me a beer next time.
We thought you died.
Also, now you speak English?
Of course I speak English. Where do you think you are?
Well, I'm just glad you're okay. You were just walking there, and then all of a sudden you collapsed.
Wait, do you have any gills on you or anything?
What? Wait, why would I have gills? What's wrong with you?
I don't know. Are you a doctor?
No, I'm in between jobs. Are you sure you're okay? Do you need me to call an ambulance or an asylum?
No.
Food? Water?
Water. You have water. Yep.
I will see you soon enough.
Go fuck yourself!
Hey, I just saved your life, man. That's uncalled.
No, I wasn't talking to you. I wasn't talking. I don't even know what that means. I don't speak Japanese. They can't see you, can they? Yeah, well, until next time. Okay. Okay, and break. Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, God.
Okay, so I just want to do a quick recap of what happened before our little break. So we started off drawing some lines on, well, first of all, actually double check your clay first, then draw your stipple line. So this should be on the face part. So pick the side of the cap that you're going to be using and draw your lines. Some of you may already have lines on there, or maybe not, I'm not too sure. So if not, take a Sharpie, make sure it's a Sharpie, and draw those lines. My first 3 layers of stipple was on the entire red head up to that first line. So that's the closest line inside. Let me just hold it up and point. That was kind of hard to see because it's powdered, but there. 3 up to there, and as my 4th, I started moving back a little bit. 5th, I moved back a little bit, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, I kind of kept within this general area here. So don't continue to stipple all the way back here. You don't want to be back here going into your 9th layer. You still want to keep your last layer up to that last stipple line. Okay, so as you can see, I've taken a garbage bag and I put it on my station, and it's on my lap down here. And I taped it to the table just so that it doesn't fall off, and I have it sitting on my lap. You don't have to tape it if you don't want to. I just think it's going to be a little bit easier. We're going to start off putting so you can see here, we're going to start off putting the red head down into your lap, face towards you. So that's the face where your Sharpie lines are facing up towards you. I have a powder brush here and I have my baby powder. I'm just going to apply some baby powder onto the table. You need quite a bit of powder for this. Okay. So along the bottom edge down here, I'm just going to take my thumb and start carefully rolling it. Now I'm just going to make sure that I'm rolling it enough to kind of see the edge so it's a little bit visible. You don't want to roll up too high. And I'm just going to keep turning the head. And I can tell my edge is extremely thin, so I'm going to have to be very careful when I'm peeling up my cap. Okay, so I've gone all the way around. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the face. So just kind of peeling a little bit towards the Sharpie line. Super thin. Okay, so I've gone all the way around. Setting it back in my lap, like so. I'm going to take a brush. I think I'm going to start off with a bit of a smaller, really, really fluffy brush. Let's see if I can get it. There we go. So you can see which one I'm using here. We want to be extremely gentle because like I talked about, if you're applying too much pressure or stretching it out too much, then you're going to end up with this kind of stretch puckered cap, which is not great. So let's start off with one corner down here at the bottom. I'm just going to hold it up so you guys can see right down here. So this is on the face side. I'm just going to start kind of peeling. So I'm holding here. I have lots of baby powder on my brush and I'm powdering behind the cap as I'm gently peeling and lifting away. So now I'm going to so now I have a corner lifted. I'm just going to bring it up a little closer so you guys can see. Okay, so you can see I have a little bit of a corner lifted here. I'm going to pinch it and kind of use the flat part of my finger as I'm rolling. I do not want to dig my nails into the cap or even like the tips of my fingers. I want to try to just kind of roll it out. And the slower, I find the slower you go, the less stretching you do and the better cap it's going to be. So I'm just, again, I just keep applying a bunch of baby powder underneath the cap. And I'm just kind of taking my finger and kind of pinching and rolling. Make sure that there's a ton of powder. I'm just kind of working this one side for now. And then now I'm kind of on more on this side, working my way towards the back. So just bringing my powder, kind of collecting it into the area that I'm working on. Make sure that your finger always has a lot of powder on it as well. So I just keep kind of rubbing my finger into the powder behind the cap. Okay, so I'm actually getting to the other side at this point. I'm gonna keep going. Super gentle, I can't stress that enough. Slow and gentle. Okay, I'm getting right up to my front. I'm just going to keep working my way around. So I'm just going to bring that up so you guys can see what it looks like. Okay, and I'm going to continue on. So just basically going in like circular round rings, working our way down. Okay. So I'm just going to start working the face section right now. Again, super carefully. We don't want to overstretch. And as you start working this corner, you're going to notice that it starts lifting up back more. So just make sure that you keep an eye everywhere that's lifting so that you can keep powdering it, or else it's going to stick to itself. So I just kind of lifted this back corner here and powdered it. Okay, going back to the front. And keeping it really nice and stretched flat as we're powdering. If you apply too much pressure with the brush, you're gonna end up sticking those wrinkles together that you have. So get it really nice and flat and very, very, like you're barely touching it as you're powdering. I'm just gonna lift it up to that top of the front here. Okay, and let's get the other side now. Sometimes I'll even kind of like scissor it in between my fingers, so just grabbing it. And then that kind of helps to keep it a little bit flatter, and I can powder a bit of a bigger area. So I'm just going to bring that up here to show you. I'm going to start working the back down. So as I pull it down, I'm then going to anchor it with one finger onto the head so it doesn't shift. Just make sure there's 0 wrinkles. Give it a very light, heavy dusting. And again, try not to pull too hard. Just keep repeating myself because these are really important steps. Okay. If you do see even minor wrinkling, try to bring the brush through into the wrinkle, not not cross-hatching. So let's say this is my wrinkle here. I'm going to be brushing this way, not across. Moving to the back again. As you start getting closer to the top of the head, it does become harder because it starts to, like if I started to pull here, it's going to start to also lift over here. Okay, so keep an eye as you're pulling down, keep an eye around the entire line that you're working. Okay, let's see. I think I can go back a little bit more to the front again. just gonna load up some powder underneath, or in between. Now, as I get to about this point on my head, I'm just going to start using my brush, kind of peeling gently away from the head and just using all that powder that I put in between the cap and the redhead. And just very carefully kind of lifting and very gently brushing all the way around. Again, try not to jab your fingers in or the brush in too hard. If you start jabbing with the brush, you're going to end up with a stretched cap. Just loading back up some powder underneath, all the way around again. For the front, I'm just kind of rolling it with powder on my thumbs. So I'm at about the halfway point now, and I can go back to my original technique, which was kind of flipping it inside out and powdering. I'm pulling just from the back now, and it goes all, once I pull from the back, it goes all the way to each side, so you want to be careful just to rotate the head and powder as you go. So constant rotation. At this point, I'm getting to kind of the middle top area. So just at this point, doing tiny little sections, and you barely have to pull it. It wants to come off because it's not having any resistance here anymore. So just very, very gentle. We got past the hardest part already. Okay. It's going to start to buckle a little bit as you get to the top. So again, make sure that so let's say you have a wrinkle coming through like this, make sure you're brushing through in the direction of the wrinkle. Okay. As you can see, I'm covered in powder. So the garbage bag did help from keeping it, all over the floor. And I can actually reuse this powder from all the stuff that's on the garbage bag for my second cap, or for you guys can for your second cap, if you would like. If you find that it does stick together a little bit, you can try to very, very gently powder your hands and then pull it apart. But again, don't pull too hard or you're going to end up with a bigger problem. some of these little imperfections can just be fixed on application as well with Bondo. So you don't want to make matters worse by tugging the cap too hard. You can use these red heads as well to make plastic or vinyl caps. So you can use Baldies encapsulating plastic, or really basically any cap plastic. Thin it out so that it's airbrushable, maybe that like 1:8 ratio, and actually airbrush it right on the red head. And then it would be the same technique. So you would want to powder a lot as you're removing, because encapsulating plastic will stick to itself just like the latex will. You can also spray latex as well. If you're airbrushing latex, you'll need a different airbrush gun. You'll need something with a bigger nozzle, just because it is quite a thicker product. Okay, I'm almost there. You can see it's just kind of dangling at the top. I'm just going to keep going with it. Almost there. There we go. Beautiful. Give it a little shake. So, I'm just going to inspect the cap now. I'm going to hold it up for you guys to see. So it's really nice. Around the edge, it's to be expected to have a little bit of either wrinkling or where it sticks to itself a little bit. That stuff mostly is going to get cut off anyway. So this was just excess. That's my really, really thin edge around the front. And I'll show you like an example right here of what I'm talking about. If you find it is sticking a little bit, again, powder your fingers and try to give it, sometimes you can just give it a little bit of a tug on either side of the wrinkle to release it. Okay. So when you're done with both of your caps, you can store them on the red head. So right now, if you're stippling another cap, just put this one off to the side. When both of them are done, you can just pull it right back on the red head, like so, and just stack them. Now that it's on there, you can see it a little bit better. So I'm just gonna give it a nice rotate for you guys. Okay, so that concludes this section of making a bald cap, a latex bald cap. I'm going to answer questions at this point. Any questions? Could you guys see that good? Got a good grasp on what's happening? Okay. Well, if there's no questions right now, I'm going to set up for my next demonstration, which is going to be various hairstyles you can do under the cap. So I'm going to do a basic hair wrap. I'm also going to do or talk about a few different techniques that you can do to give texture under the cap or pulling the hair through the cap. So we're going to take a short break, maybe let's say 15-minute break. So I'll see you back here at 10:45 and we'll start that demo.
Beauty impossible, Vanessa.
Tut tut, darling. I can't make a good impression if you're the one doting. On Nana, after all.
After all, it's Grandma Joe. We all know you make a good impression. It is like your job.
Yes, I suppose it is my job. However, you gadfly, you always seem to strive for the opposite. What makes you so bitey on this day of multiple celebrations?
Yes, Evan? What's gotten into your shoes, huh?
Simply the fact that maybe not all the changes are for the best.
Evan. Trevor and I are only moving to Victoria, which is a few hours away. Like Sarah, you will be off to college in a couple of months. Grandma Josie has done so much for us. For you. We get you. Okay? No, we do. But right now is not the time. Be nice. Some help here? Sarah? Hello there. Are you gonna shape up this boy right here once we're gone? Grandma Josie can't do it all by herself. Again.
Congrats, Grandma Joe, on your settlement. Trevor, I'm glad you and Vanessa are happy with the move. Evan, don't be a dick.
And let's not forget about Mom and Dad.
Evan! I don't. This day is for all of us. Them too.
What the fuck?
No! 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 No, Trevor! What have you done? No! No, 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 please, why? No! What have you done? No! Please! Help! Help, Sarah! Sarah, no, 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 please! Please!
this. It's Grandma, you're the one with the money.
Fuck you!
What were you gonna say, princess?
It's not personal, Grandma.
So, Sarah, where are you going to go to school? I mean, it's so exciting, isn't it? Think of all the new experiences. It's gonna be awesome. What a fucking waste of brain. Piece of shit. You'll never go to university. You're here to take care of these two wastes of skin. I'm getting my life back. I want a real family. Not this. Not you.
Yeah. I mean, there's no need to go out of town. Heck, out of province. You got it all right here.
Fucking slut. You just stay here. Here. Where you can keep teasing me, whore. I know you want to fuck me. I can smell it. You can't keep your eyes off of me. Be patient, little slut. You get what you want.
Are you okay, sweetheart? You don't look so hot. I know there's a lot of changes, but so many options now. So many new beginnings, huh? Lord knows I've tried. But you just can't seem to fit. Can you? You are such a waste. Such a disappointment. Thank God you can see what you become.
Oh, I see.
Now what you are.
Hey Sarah, I just wanted to say thank you for your help with the college applications over the past year and for being there, even though I was a colossal asshole. You know. Yeah, you know it was your fucking fault, dude. You did it. I fucking know you did it. No, I can see you, the real you. You've always been sick. My dad didn't know it, didn't see it, but I did. I even tried to warn them back before. Well, you know. Are you okay? Do you need your inhaler?
Yeah, no, I just need someone to go to the bathroom.
Sarah, you are cursed, Sarah. You haven't done all I tried to say. Why? Why, girl?
Because you're all liars. You're frauds. You're all sick.
That's not true.
You can't fix what was broken, Joe.
What? No. No, Sarah. Things change. They must.
Do you remember what Dad said to me before he left?
No. I wasn't there. And neither were you.
Yes, you were. I saw you. You were.
Sarah, you're not well like your mother. There can be a way out of this. I can't protect if I'm dead.
I don't need protection anymore.
Sarah, wakey, wakey, sleepyhead.
Come in.
Dinner's on in like 5 minutes. Are you coming to join us? I hope so. Vanessa and I have a surprise for everyone.
Sure, I'll be right there. What are you waiting for? You'd be doing them a favor.
Hey, princess, wanna hurry it up? I'm starving.
Coming!
What is your problem?
We'll all be together. Soon.
Okay, so we're moving on to various styles of hair. We're going to start off with a hair wrap. So if you have a model with longer hair, I'm going to expect you to put it all up under the cap in some form. What you want to think about is during this exam, you can actually change the structure of your model's head, which is really, really cool. Or you can just make it nice and flat, so it's up to you. I'm going to do my first hair wrap, just trying to really mimic the shape of your model's skull as much as possible. So, first thing we're going to do is start by sectioning off your model's hair. Okay, so I'm going to take a section on the crown here, a little bit more forward. The thing when doing hair prep is you want to have a nice, even, symmetrical look on both sides. So make sure that you're checking both sides and you have the same sections. Okay, so I'm just going to twist it so you guys can see my section a little bit better. Like so. And then the top, just turn it down for you guys so you can see here. Okay. So I have my main section in the back, and I'm going to section off the front. Again, really nice, even sections. And just put that off to the side. I'm just going to put in a little bit of a bun just to keep it out of the model's face. And let's work on the side panel now. So we're going to come in kind of maybe an inch or a few centimeters behind the ear. So we have our sections laid out. I'm just going to push this one off to the side so you can see. let's start off working on that nice kind of back crown area. So kind of brushing back and upwards. Whoop. Making sure that the hair is really nice and smoothed out. Okay, great. So I'm going to start off by doing kind of a giant pin curl here. So I'm just going to twist and then holding my base here with one hand, I'm going to start bringing the hair up and around, and then I'm going to cup with my other hand. And basically we're just trying to evenly distribute the hair. Just going to loosen that up here so that there's not a big bump. And just kind of spinning it around. So this will look flatter on somebody with finer hair. Somebody that has a lot of coarse hair, you might even have to do like a roller set or maybe a gentle curl beforehand, just so there's a little bit of movement to the hair and it's not as stiff. Okay. Good. Once you have it in place, so you can see here, I do have a little bit of space all the way around my section. I haven't brought my hair all the way down to my section. There's probably about a couple centimeters in between my roll and my part. Let's pin this into place. Just going to loosely pin it because I might have to readjust it, and I'll definitely want to take out my pins before applying the bald cap, as many as I can. So make sure that they're going to be accessible. Just finessing it. You can kind of feel it with your hand. If there's any areas that feel a little bit bulkier, make sure you spread those out. And just make sure you have some balance. I might need to pull it off to the side a little bit more. Okay. So that's the first section. Now I'm going to start with the bottom. Split the bottom into two sections. Like so. Right down the center. Brushing the hair up towards the bun. And then diagonally across. So I'm just going to use my hand and kind of flatten out the base down here a little bit and pulling up again and a little bit diagonal. Then I'm just going to use a clip to hold that in place. Taking the remaining hair, depending on the length of your model's hair, that's going to change, and just wrapping it around the top. And I'll just bobby pin that into place. Now let's take hairspray. You want a really nice strong hold hairspray for this. And lots of spray because we're going to end up taking out the pins. Let's get it nice and smooth. Making sure that we're spraying the ends as well. So I'm just gonna move this so that you guys can see a little bit better here. Okay, let's take that second bottom section and brushing in the opposite direction. So that's up and a diagonal in the opposite direction. Again, holding down to flatten out a little bit of that top section here. And wrapping around. Pin that into place on the side. Just clip it. Taking the end and continuing up on the top. And just a nice loose bobby pin there. Let's spray that. Okay. A little bit more spray. We really need this to hold. I should be able to remove the clips at this point. Make sure that your hairspray is a strong hold and dry enough before removing any clips and pins. Okay, so it's kind of holding itself into place right now. I do have a few bobby pins in there and we'll just leave those for the time being. Let's start working the sides. So just take one side. Brushing kind of back and a little bit up. We really want to pull the hair away from the ear. That's why I'm going a little bit up, because we will be applying that bald cap. We want it nice and clean and easy to glue the cap down in that area. So kind of coming back and up on a diagonal. Again, holding the top down and pulling it nice and tight. Okay, and just gonna hold that in place. Let's spray. And get it nice and clean. With the remaining hair on the end, we're actually going to tuck that back around. Just pin it into place and spray it. Make sure everything's still nice and tight. Okay, so let's work the other side panel. Again, coming kind of up and back on that diagonal. Brushing it nice and smooth. And holding it in place. Clip it. Lots of spray, lots of hairspray. And then again, we'll bring this side, open it up a bit more. Down and around. And just bobby pin that to keep it into place. I should be able to remove some of these clips. I should be able to remove this one. Just very carefully sliding it out. I'm going to leave this one a little bit that I just put in until it sets. Okay, great. Let's move on to the front. So I'm just going to dip the head down so you can see a little bit better. Brushing that front panel back. Okay. Coming all the way down. Now, some hair lengths you can just spray it into place. For her hair here, it does go onto the nape of her neck at the bottom, so I will end up tucking it. For now, I'm just gonna spread it out really nice and evenly. And just kind of pin it, or just put a clip in there. Spray. And just make sure that there's going to be no unwanted textures. So before I lock this top panel in, I'm going to go in and remove this bobby pin on the side and the clip, like so. Feel around if there's any extra bobby pins that you can feel just by tapping it and touching it. Try to remove those because the cap will add a little tension on the head. And you don't want to have little bobby pins kind of poking out on the cap. Okay, so making sure everything's still staying nice and tight. Okay, so I'm going to place a bobby pin right down at the bottom, like so, across the hair. And then I'm going to roll the remaining hair up just so I can get it tucked in really nice. Let's cross the pins so that it stays like so. Spray again, and let's do one last gentle brush. Okay, so I'm just gonna show you this from the various angles. You always want to look to make sure that there's balance as well. So once this is set, you might spray it a little bit more if you're actually doing it for your exam or for your practice, but I just want to show you what it will look like with a cap on top. Okay, so I'm just going to pull the cap carefully. So usually you can get your model to hold the front, but I'm just going to very carefully place it a little bit lower, holding the front, opening it up and pulling backwards. At this point I have left my bobby pins down at the bottom. I'm going to leave them there until I go to glue, if I was actually doing this, until I go to actually glue it down. So you can see, I'm going to just make it a little bit tighter here by pulling it. And now I have all her hair up into the hair wrap. Okay, so that's just basic style hair wrap. Let's talk about some other stuff that you guys can do as I take the pins out here. If you wanted to do hair coming out the top or like a mohawk, faux hawk kind of look, you have some different options depending on the desired effect. So one thing you can do is section the hair off, and I'll just show you sectioning it and applying small ponytails right down the center, maybe about maybe a few centimeters apart. And then you could cut the cap. So you would cut the holes in the cap starting at the front and then pull the hair through. So you'll have many, little ponytails coming down the center. And then you can curl that and backcomb it and create kind of like a big, maybe faux hawk, or you can even braid it in and then loosen it up and have a nice braid coming down the center of the cap. So that's kind of one style. If you're trying to do some more texture under the cap, like some ridges, you can do some Dutch braids just to anchor on whatever it is you'll be applying. So you can use cotton, you can use like foam balls that you've cut in half. You can use foam that you've carved. I've used seashells before. Whatever you're going to use to anchor on under or to apply texture under the cap, you'll want to be able to anchor those to the braids. And whatever you're going to use other than cotton, you want to apply a pin onto it. So if you're cutting a foam ball in half, let's say, hot glue a clip or a bobby pin to the underside of the foam ball, and then you can just slide it in and create ridges. So if you are going to do that, you really want to think about where you want to have your ridges. So are you going to have, more of a spiny ridge coming down the center of your cap? Maybe you can have two on either sides of your model's head coming in, or three, one down the center, two on the sides. I wouldn't do too many of them because it's just going to get confusing to the eye if you put on like too many sporadic textures underneath. So keep with a pattern and a plan for that. And I'll just briefly show you guys a sectioning for if you wanted to pull the hair out of the cap. So if your model has a lot of hair and it's thick, feel free to pull it out and to use it with your design. If your model has fine, thin hair, I don't recommend doing this. There won't be enough hair to use after to cover up the holes in the cap. Unless you add extensions to the hair, then that would be different. So use what your model has. So I'm just gonna, the first section, if you are gonna be pulling hair out, should be just the front. So I'm just gonna tilt it back. Oh, actually, I'll do this. So as you can see, it would be a small elastic in the front section here. The reason why we would pull an area where it's just the front section is we don't want to have any bulk on the hairline. So if I put an elastic right here, I'm just going to bun it for now and clip it just so you guys can see. If I put an elastic right here, the hair is laying very flat, okay? If I grabbed a full section from the front, let's say like this, and I went to pull it forward, all this hair is starting to bulk up the hairline. So your bald cap is going to go flat and then have a big bump that happens right here on the side of the head. So again, the first section would be just a small one. I'm just going to pin it out of the way just to show you guys the sectioning. The second section now can come from the ear up and back in a triangular section. So I'll just show you what that looks like. You always want to make sure that the hair is extremely smooth and there's no bumps or bulk that's happening. So spend your time doing your hair prep. I'm just going to pin that for now so I can do the other side. So again, brushing up and diagonally, making sure it's really nice and clean and tight. And adding it in try to have your sections pretty symmetrically spaced. So really, really nice and tight and clean. You can use spray or gel for this look. It's up to you. Just make sure that before you apply the cap, if you are using gel, that it is dry. So just kind of combing those sections together on the side to make sure that I'm not going to have kind of ridges or any texture. Okay, I think this last one, depending on the style that you're doing, this last one you can either section it off into 2 different ones, or you can pull it all up if you want it to look like your model just has hair on the top. So at this point in time, you want to make sure that your sections are clean and it's running down the center of the head. So I can see this one's a little bit off center here. So when I actually put it up into an elastic, I would just kind of shift it over a little bit. You want to make sure it's running down either the center or the sides, whatever design you're doing. So just small elastics in each one, and then pull the cap on. Take a like a light colored, maybe a nude lip liner, and mark where the base of the elastic is on each one. Then take the cap off, cut a hole, a small hole in the cap where you've marked, and then pull the cap back on while pulling through the sections of hair. So this is the hair prep basically for pulling hair out of the cap in one style. If you guys have any questions, now would be a good time to ask. Okay, hold on. Okay, so you can store the cap definitely in a bag if your cap has been powdered. The one thing you don't want to do is fold your cap, because if you fold the cap, you might end up with permanent like ridges where the fold lines are. So if you can, it's advised to keep them on the head until you use them, the red head, or just lay them out nice and flat. Try not to like fold too many times and apply too much pressure on them. Do we have any other questions regarding either the cap, so making the cap, or the hair wrap? I wouldn't advise pulling the hair through the cap with short hair. You will actually notice the holes in the bald cap that you're going to be pulling the hair through. So I would only do it on somebody with thick enough long hair. So even if your model has very, very fine hair, but it's longer, I still wouldn't advise pulling it through. It's going to be hard to achieve a really nice look that way. So pull it through if your model has a bit more hair. If not, either do a hair wrap, or if your model's hair is short, just do a regular bald cap. And you guys have done that before, just styling short hair under the cap. So just brushing it back and making sure it's very smooth with shorter hair. Any other questions? So this week, I want you guys to practice hair wraps. So you're gonna make 2 latex bald caps, one for your practice application, one for your exam. 2. If you have leftover latex, feel free to use it and make a 3rd cap. Use your better cap for your practical. Okay, so practice with the cap that has more imperfections on it. Once you've made your caps, you can practice your hair wrap. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the fact that you're going to use a hair wrap for your exam. I still want you practicing it, because in the future you will have to do this, especially just the regular hair wrap that I did at the beginning of the demo. So please practice that. You can also practice this look, and if you'd like to practice some braids down the side with some texture, you can practice that as well. Just make sure that everything's balanced. I do want to see pictures of all your practice hair wraps and good close-up pictures of your bald cap, and that's all labeled. The pictures that I want are labeled on the sheet that Anna sent to you. So make sure that you drop those in your folder, and we can talk about your ideas that you have for your exam as well. So if your ideas have changed, or maybe it's been a while since you showed me, do start on your face charts, or if you have any ideas, just send me reference photos so we can talk about it, okay? Because maybe you have different ideas for the hair wrap and you want to know how to do different things, and I'll be more than happy to explain that to you guys individually. Okay, so we will be doing our Zoom on Monday. Please join us on the Zoom so we can just go over everything again, and if you have any more questions, then you can ask those then. I'm just going to give it a minute, see if anybody can think of any questions right now, and then we'll just end the demo for the day. One thing I did want to mention actually is the supplies that I gave you. You got 2 jars of Bondo. One of the jars is fairly full. One is maybe half full or a third full. The fuller one for sure is a little bit thinner, and the smaller one potentially might be a little bit thicker. Use the smaller one anyways for this exam, and then whatever you have left over you can use for your final exam. I gave you guys 1 transfer paper and 1 release film, so I expect you to pour up your Bondo transfers for your final exam using the Bondo that I gave you. That is a requirement unless you are purchasing pre-made foam pieces. If you are purchasing pre-made foam pieces, you do not have to use Bondo transfers for the exam. You don't need to put your practice bald caps over the practice hair wraps. I just showed you that so you can see what it would look like, but really your Judy head's head is way smaller than a normal person's head, so it's not going to look the same when you pull it on. I just want to see pictures of just the hair prep. When you guys do so next week after my demo of application, when you do your practice, it will be the exact look you're going to do. So whatever hair prep you're going to do, and you'll be applying the ear on the same side, like whatever spare ear you have. But I'll talk more about that next week as well. Okay, so I hope this is helpful today with the hair wraps, and I really want you guys to be super careful when making your caps. Again, make sure that they're not chunky, so really stippling out that latex nice and thin, making sure you do enough layers. I did 9 layers, and it's a really nice thickness for what I need, so I'm happy with that. And just really careful to not pull it too hard when you're removing it. You only have the 2 caps, so you need to get one good one. You have to use one of those for your exam. I'd like to see the pictures of your first one. If anything happens and there's any imperfections or you don't know what went wrong with making your first cap, send me really good detailed pictures and we can communicate. Just email me if there's any issues or any questions. If everything goes smoothly, just drop your pictures in your Google Drive folder. If you guys could make a folder within your Google Drive folder that says latex bald caps or / hair wraps, and then put them in there. I'd like to keep everything organized for me so I can give you feedback on the correct pictures for the weeks. Okay, so I guess that's it for today, and I'll talk to you guys on Monday in the Zoom. It was good to see you. Bye.